Wow. Oh my goodness. We have Anna Saccone on the show. Woo!
Welcome to the show.
Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to have to go back into my intro and change the way I've been pronouncing your name. I didn't even say the word pronouncing right.
Fine.
Pronouncing your name, because I have been saying for all these years Anna Saccone, but it's Anna Saccone. Oh,
that's okay. I mean, I'll take either. I don't mind.
Oh my goodness. When Sarah and I first said that we were doing this podcast, we were so excited to write our list of guests that we wanted to interview, and you were on the top of my list. I feel like I know you because I've been following you for so many years, and even before I had kids, I somehow found you and your pregnancy vlogs, which you were doing before anyone thought pregnancy vlogs were cool. You were like the inventor of the pregnancy vlogs. And I remember week by week, this is like 2 years before I even had a kid, because your eldest is 10 now. Is that correct?
10. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's 10. I know.
Wow.
It's crazy. I know.
That's amazing. And so I discovered you all those years ago, and you were so stinking cute. You had these little bump photos and these little videos, and you'd show the bump on each side, and you'd talk about what you were feeling that week and like the little kicks in the movement. And so I religiously followed you for all these years. And then when I got pregnant, I went back and I rewatched all your vlogs, and I remember thinking, I want to do this. It made such an impact on me when I was pregnant, and just seeing like week by week, I could go to your 22-week pregnancy vlog and see what was going on and if the same things were happening during my pregnancy. And I just thought it was so interesting that I decided to do them as well. And I have to say, the feedback that Sarah and I have had, because we've been so willing to share so much of our pregnancies and our experiences, it's been so positive. So I have you to thank for that, Anna.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot to me. I remember when you first reached out to me, and I was like, I mean, Jonathan and I knew who you were, obviously. And we were just like, I was like, is this real? Like, is this for real? Is this really her? We just couldn't believe it, because we were fans. We were like, what? How is this real life? I think you followed me at the same time as, I've forgotten her name now, but it was one of the actresses from Saved by the Bell.
Whoa.
And I felt
Elizabeth Berkley.
Elizabeth Berkley.
That was it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? This is crazy. And it happened around the same time. And I think, I don't know, was it for similar reasons or what it was? Because I know that the pregnancy vlogs is kind of like how most people found me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just crazy. So I'm really flattered to be here.
I would love to just dive into how your journey began. And I know you met Jonathan, and then the two of you decided to start documenting your lives on YouTube, and you became a global sensation. It was so out of control. The amount of views you've had on all of your videos, it's so unbelievable. And you're so willing to go there and be raw and authentic and show so many parts of yourselves that so often people want to keep behind closed doors. But you guys are like, do you know what? Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And all of a sudden there's these legions of fans saying, oh my gosh, she went through that too. Like, I'm going through this as well. And it was just such a beautifully vulnerable thing to do. And I want to talk to you about that decision and has it evolved, and your thoughts surrounding like being a YouTube family. I just love to hear all of that.
Yeah. So obviously when we started, I mean, we weren't even getting paid. It was just like a hobby. It was so different. Now I feel like it's more of a business for people. And obviously that changes things, right? Like that changes why people get into it and how they navigate that. And it's a strange one because we never set out to be like family vloggers, but that's just kind of what we fell into. And I have to say that, you know, all negativity and trolling and all of that aside, I feel like it was one of the best decisions that we ever made, just because our kids absolutely love it. Like they love being able to look back on their lives, their whole lives. Like, you know, it seems crazy to have shared basically like our journey to parenthood and like who we were before we became parents to who we became as it happened. Wow. But at the same time, it's so interesting for the kids to watch and to look back on. And it was really cool. I was, recently our school did like they had like a doctor, like a psychologist on, talking about children's development and children's like mental health post-COVID and all of that. And something that she mentioned, which really stood out to me, was that it's actually very helpful and healthy for children to kind of like be able to look back on their journey as people. So like that's why kids love looking at baby photos or videos of them learning to walk and videos of them, photographs of them, like all of that stuff is so healthy for them to look back on. And I was like, that's crazy that we actually did that, not for that reason, but it's just crazy to me that that's now, like studies have shown that's proven that that's actually a really good thing for kids and like a healthy thing for kids to watch, and it builds their self-confidence as well, because it kind of gives them a sense of like who they are and where they came from and all of that. And I definitely see those like positive effects in our kids because they just love it. And what I love about it is that time of your life is so crazy where you're, you know, I was breastfeeding, and at times I was breastfeeding and pregnant at the same time. And you forget so much of it. And it's almost like you're it's like so hazy because, you know, you're running on lack of sleep and exhaustion and there's so much going on. And I've forgotten like big chunks. But then when I go back and watch, it's almost like watching a movie of someone else that isn't me, because there's things, and I'm like, I have no memory of that happening. So I'm so glad that I have that, because it's almost scary. It's like if I didn't have that, I would have forgotten that I even existed.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's like little time capsules that you have forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, when we were kids, it was like the giant camcorder that somebody was like carrying around on their shoulder, right? And it was like, and I had an uncle who had a camcorder, and so he was like the token like video guy. So any videos from childhood were from that. But I remember like watching those back and being like, oh wow, that's so interesting, because I remembered that moment differently than what I'm seeing. And it's really cool to have that, you know, documented. And also, honestly, for other people, like, you know, for your first kid, you have a lot of pictures. You have a lot of documentation. Next kid comes along and I'm like, I swear I'm going to write down that stuff in the baby book. And then you're like, well, I didn't get to that. And then it's like the third kid and you're sort of, I just take like everything from the doctor's office that says like, how big is she? And like, you know, what's her, like what's happening right now? And I just like shove it into the baby book and I'm like, I'll do it later, which it's never going to happen.
Oh my gosh. Exactly. I've been saying that for so many years. I'm like, I'm just going to put together the like 0 to 2 book, and then it keeps being like, oh, it's gonna have to be like a 0 to 5 book, and then it's like I've written it.
You've nailed it.
Oh my god, I've written it in my notes. I've got stuff down written, and I'm always like, I'll definitely do it. Like I'll pull the photos, and I just know I'm never going to. It's like number 200 on my to-do list.
Yeah, it is number 200.
So hard.
Just right above laundry. Just right there.
Anna, I remember there was this one time, because I was always so inspired about you, and just how, you know, you were getting pregnant and you had your babies in quite quick succession. You had 4 in how many years?
Yeah, so I think it's basically I had 5 pregnancies in 6 years,
Wow.
which sounds insane. Yeah. So I know you're like, now they say that, or doctors say that you're supposed to give yourself like 2 years to recover. I never did that. So this is like my time to recover, I feel like. But yeah, I was basically pregnant 5 times in 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember there was this one time and I was like, yay, Anna and I are finally pregnant at the same time. And I had just had a pregnancy loss. And then I was like, you and I were both like, we're pregnant. And then you messaged me to say, actually, I've had a pregnancy loss. And I watched that video of the two of you and you were so beautiful and open, and I could just feel the grief and the love and the sorrow, but also the fact that you were willing to go there and share that experience with all those people watching that video. You're just such an inspiration for so many others who, I think even at that time, pregnancy loss wasn't even discussed that much. It is a lot more now. But when it happened, I remember thinking, wow, I think Anna is one of the first people with a public profile that I've ever seen like openly talk about this. And I just want to find out, is there anything sort of off limits for you guys? Or was it in that moment you thought, no, I've got to share this with everyone?
Oh, well, it's tricky because so basically what happened was I had 2 really easy pregnancies, and I think I was 20. Oh, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think I was 28 when I went through my 3rd pregnancy. And I was very naive to the fact that pregnancy, my mom had never had a miscarriage. So I was one of those people that was just like, it's never going to happen to me, you know?
Right.
And I think that comes with just like a little bit of ignorance, and also because I was younger. I don't know. I just never expected it. So we always shared that we were pregnant pretty early on, because again, I just felt it was like that invincibility thing that you just, you know, you don't realize it. Yeah, you don't realize it until something bad happens that actually I'm not invincible.
Right.
And so we had shared it the same time that we shared the other 2 pregnancies, which was 8 weeks. Which now looking back, I'm like, that was so early, but at the time it didn't seem like it. It just seemed like that was what we did. And so then I remember we went to, I think it was Playlist Live in Florida, and we had queues and queues of people like that were queuing to meet us. And it was like a meet and greet. And they had brought presents for the baby. And we knew from a doctor's appointment before we left, it was such a crazy time. Like I basically went for a scan and was told that it was potentially a miscarriage, but they weren't 100% sure yet. And then we did Playlist Live. And then when I flew back is when I found out that it was definitely like gone.
Wow.
But so I was kind of in limbo for that whole time. So people were queuing up and giving us gifts for this baby. And we hadn't said anything yet. So we didn't even know whether to address it. Like we really didn't know how to, because it had never happened to us before. And so during, I think it was like maybe a 2-week period, nobody knew. But it was so crazy that I was like hugging people and accepting gifts for this baby that I knew, like Jonathan and I knew, was possibly not even alive anymore. Like it was just such a crazy thing. And we really took that time to kind of figure out what our next steps would be. And honestly, I think the way it unfolded was very like, it wasn't planned. It was just whatever kind of felt right at the time. But we definitely did have like that period, like I said, of 2 weeks where no one knew except for us. And that's kind of when we tried to figure out what we were going to do next. And I think I remember when Jonathan put the camera down, when we got that scan where we were basically told that the baby didn't make it. He thought it was going to be good news. Like we were very optimistic. So he didn't realize that was going to happen. And I think he put the camera down and then instantly forgot because the moment happened, the nurse came in, like gave us the news. And so that whole moment was extremely like raw and real. And yeah, it was just something that we happened to capture. And then afterwards, like we always have a mutual like understanding of what we will share, what we won't share. And like he would never share anything that I was uncomfortable with, and vice versa. So we both just decided, look, this is our journey. This is what's happening. And I'm sure there are so many others that are in the same boat. So we're just going to share it. I never, ever expect, like I still to this day get messages from people that find that video or find the missed miscarriage videos that are going through it like right now. Like still in 2022, I get messages from people being like, I just found your video. Thank you so much. So I do feel like at the end, like even though it was difficult and hard to share, I feel like it was the right decision because it has helped so many people. I think when we had that time to process it ourselves, like privately, that helped a lot because it wasn't like, I don't know if I could have shared it like straight away. So I'm glad that we had that time. But definitely, yeah, there's things that are off limits, like especially I think as we became parents and, you know, bringing up children online, I feel like there's so much now that people don't see. Like the kids they have got a lot of privacy. We always kind of like play it by, we follow their lead. So like whatever they're comfortable with sharing is like good with us. And obviously they're still really little. So as they get older, things change. But also our kids are just, I don't know, maybe it's just the age that they're growing up in, but especially the older ones, like they want to do it even more than we do. Like everyone wants to be a YouTuber. All their friends want to be, you know, they love it. So I thought it was going to be the opposite. Like I thought as they get older, they would be like more off camera, but it's actually gone the opposite direction. So I don't know what the future holds.
My favorite videos are of Jonathan and Edie, like all their little videos together, like one after the other. And you can tell she's just like loving it.
She'll go to Jonathan like multiple times a day and be like, can we make this TikTok? Can we make this TikTok? Can we make this one? Can we make this one? And she's just so into it. I mean, they all are, but she really, really enjoys it. Like it's her favorite thing to do.
She's so cute. And I love the ones where you guys are like dancing together. And I mean, she's amazing. She's like, you can tell she loves it.
I wanted to ask you about that as well. So your daughter Edie was assigned male at birth and has now blossomed and come into her own. And she's just so her authentic self, which is she's just so beautiful and glorious. And I think, again, another inspiration to so many other families who are navigating things like this. I just wanted to ask, how was that for you? Having to move through that publicly, and were you just like, well, this is a part of our life and like let us be an inspiration to others?
Yeah. So when Edie kind of had her like initial transition, I guess, during COVID. So she actually thrived during the pandemic because she had that break from school. She kind of like figured out who she was, who she wanted to be. And she was able to do it really slowly, like pretty much just out of the public eye and out of, because we didn't actually film any of that. Like nobody really knew that was going on, but she would turn up to like her online lessons, sometimes wearing a wig. And then maybe she would wear like a girly top, but not the bottom, you know, like it was just like whatever she felt like, and she would do it really slowly. And then eventually that year was when she fully like came out, I guess, as like she was a girl. And so she really loved that, being able to do it like off, like, so not
in a school environment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's like kind of off, Yeah, exactly what you said. Like, it's just, it was a different kind of a safe space to do it, because she felt like she was at home. And so during that time, like, nobody online knew. So that was very much like, you know, behind closed doors. And that was us, again, following her lead. Like, she was funny about stuff. Like, she would say if I took an Instagram picture and she was dressed as a girl, I would say, okay, I'm going to take this picture now. And she would quickly go and change into her boy clothes. And then slowly she started to get used to it. And then but I kept asking her and asking her and asking her. And it's amazing now to think about her like that, because it's so opposite. But in the beginning, it was very, like, she was afraid to, obviously, you know, she was afraid of the backlash.
Right. Wow.
And, but now she's completely the opposite. And I can't even believe that it's the same person sometimes. But no, I think Jonathan and I had a different, I mean, we're different people, right? Like, we have the similar, like, well, I would say the same parenting styles, and the same morals, and like we're very similar in that way on like the big things, but we're different people. I'm way more, I would say, of a people pleaser, and I probably care more about what other people think, whereas he just doesn't give a shit.
That's amazing.
I love that quality.
I admire that, but I'm not like that. Like, I'm different.
Me neither.
And and I'm probably more conventional.
I'm the same. My husband's like, who cares? Like, who cares what anyone thinks? And I was like, I do a little bit though. I do.
Yeah. So he was very like, I'm going to celebrate her. Like, this is who she is. I don't care what anybody says.
Good for him.
I never,
awesome.
And that's when I felt that. I was like, I felt so proud. I really respected that about him. I was way more afraid, because to me, if I get like a nasty comment about my child, it's so much worse than getting a mean comment about myself. So I just didn't want that. So I never actually addressed it. I never said anything about it. I just kind of like carried on without saying anything.
Yeah. And you don't have to either. You don't have to be like, here is my opinion on this. Like, this is her life. You know,
you don't owe it to anybody. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, why? But, exactly. I love that that's the way you handled it.
Yeah, but it's interesting that we did it like completely different ways, but yet we both respected each other, like, for how we did it. And it's crazy, because either one, like, I think no matter what you do, you're always going to get some kind of criticism. Like, I feel like he got backlash from people saying that he was exploiting her and he was using her like for clout. When in reality, that's just like, I don't really know what we were supposed to do, like hide her away, like hide the queer child away, pretend she doesn't exist. Like, it's just weird.
What is wrong with people?
And then my thing, people were like, she's ashamed of her. She's like embarrassed. So it doesn't matter what you do. I feel like people are always going to criticize. Yeah. And that actually gave me a little bit of, it gave me a bit more like, confidence about the whole thing. So I was like, well, it just goes to show that no matter what we do, like, either approach is going to be criticized. So actually, who cares? You know?
You know what? We were talking about this with another guest who has like a lot of people following her, and she was like, yeah, there's just going to be people, and there's so many positive comments, and then it's so easy to hone in on the like few little negative comments, and then like be in bed at night and you just like hear them repeating over and over in your head. I am so like that. If I have one negative comment to like 100 positive ones, I'm always like, well, maybe are they right? Like, I think maybe they're right. Like, it's so funny. And it's the keyboard warriors who like come in, who would never say these things to your face.
No, I know it's, well, I think what I base everything off of now, well, aside from, I think we all have that like maternal instinct. I don't care who you are. Like, you just, you know, your own children, your own child better than anyone does. That's and I've always known that. Like, I feel like I said this to Jonathan just the other day. I was like, I really admire you and like people like you that are more, you're just like this earth mother, like you're so like natural living and like into all of that. And I just really, I wish I could be that. And I know I'm not, like, I know I'm not, I fail at that, like for sure. But I also feel like I can relate to it because I do feel like this really strong, like instinct.
Yes,
of like
maternal instinct.
Yeah, like I just knew, I don't know how, but I knew what I was supposed to do once I became a mother. And I know that doesn't happen like instantly for everybody, but for me it was like very, I don't know, it was just like this really intense feeling that I had. And I remember I watched, this is going to sound really stupid, but I watched our dog Sina give birth.
Oh my God, I love your dogs.
Thank you. She gave birth 5 times, and I saw her go from a puppy herself to just knowing what to do. And like each time a puppy came out, she like tore, she broke off the umbilical cord, like she ripped it with her teeth, and then she ate the placenta. And I was like, how does she know how to do that? And then amazing. She starts feeding the babies, and I was like, but how did she know? Like, no, there was no book. There was no pregnancy vlogs for her.
Yes.
Like she didn't know what to do, but she didn't have any handbook, but yet she knew what to do. And I watched her while I was pregnant with my first, with Amelia. And I remember watching her in complete awe, being like, okay, if she can do that, if she can do that 5 times, I think I can do it 1 time. And I thought of her when I was giving birth. Like I genuinely thought of her and how inspirational she was to me as a mother, because I saw her become a mother. And I do feel like we have that inside us, even though it might be, a little bit distorted because we've got all of these, like, we have TV and internet and
so
like
much information,
opinions.
Yeah.
But I do think at our core, like I knew what to do with like all of my babies, just how Sina knew what to do. And you do have that inside you, but it does get like convoluted by people's opinions and all of that. And I think being on the internet, you have to be strong. And I definitely struggled with that in the beginning, but I kept going back to how like my dog knew what to do. So I know what to do, and I do trust it.
I feel like everyone finds their own unique path with it.
Yes, agreed.
And there's such a perspective when you have a following or whatever, everyone's like, oh, they parent like this. This is the way they parent. And I've always thought with you, like, you're so instinctual and you're so fun and you just you really feel like such a natural mama and you're meeting your kids' needs as they arise. And you just seem like such a supportive parent to them. And I know, I really feel like your children will grow up and be like, wow, my mom is such a warrior. Like, what an incredible human being. And you advocate for such good things in the world. Like, you have struggled in your life with disordered eating. And then here you are, you're in such an amazing place of recovery and you're sharing that story with so many people who look up to you, who also feel shame about their own bodies and who look in the mirror and pinch their fat. And I'm someone that also does that. So I just want to say that I'm so grateful that you're someone who is using your position to affect positive change in the world, because it really is needed.
And it works. It really does. Like when you put that out into the world, it's like such a beautiful energy that people, pick up on. And they're like, yeah, exactly. Like, why am I looking in the mirror every day and criticizing what I'm seeing? And like, I've had children and my body's changed, or, whatever it is. And it's like that, those things should be celebrated. Those things should be honored and loved. And when they see someone like you that they already love because they love your authenticity and they love what you're putting out into the world, and then they see you going like, yeah, this is who I am. This is my body. I'm proud of it. Like, it's just, it makes such a huge difference. It makes you look at yourself and go, oh yeah, like why am I, criticized it? I remember looking back on photos, and I remember a time in my life in my 20s when I was like so critical of my stomach. And then I look back on pictures and I was like, what? Like, that's amazing. Like, what was I doing? Why did I do that? I mean, there was this photo, I have to find it, where like Eric and I were on one of our first vacations together. We were in Hawaii or something. We'd like snuck off to this area on this side of the beach, and I'm like in a bikini and I'm sitting next to him, and I just have my head laid over, and I wasn't sucking in my stomach, and I wasn't doing anything that I normally would do to like make my body look better, right? I just was sitting there with him. And I have looked back on that photo so many times now because first of all, I was like, my body was great. Second, I didn't give a crap what anyone thought in that moment. I just was so in love with my partner that I was just like snuggled up and in a picture with him. And it was like something to look back and go like, what was I thinking? Why was I so critical? So it's just really appreciated, when you share those things.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, likewise, I feel inspired anytime I see like on Instagram or any kind of social media, and there's so many more now. I feel like that's amazing that there's so many more of us kind of speaking out about it. Mm-hmm. And people from like all different shapes and sizes and all different walks of life. Like, I just think the more, the better, because everybody can relate to someone, and for lots of different reasons as well. I definitely have looked at, I know that after we had our first baby, so after we had Amelia, we were getting trolled pretty heavily. There was a lot of love as well, but there was a lot of trolling, and a lot of it was to do with my appearance. And I beat myself up so much postpartum with Amelia, and probably nobody even knew or like realized, but I used to read stuff about I read way too much noise on the internet. Like, I paid so much attention, but as a first time mom, it's like, you just don't know any better. Yeah. And I remember feeling so bad about myself, and just being picked apart in every single way possible. And now when I look, I mean, I was 24, I'm 35 now. So I was 24 when I had Amelia, and I look back on pictures now of me, like even a few weeks postpartum, and I'm like, I looked amazing. What was I worried about? Like, what an idiot. How did I let other people's opinions affect me that much? But I feel like that's like a cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle. It is.
So yeah, you might as well just be happy with the weight, because you're going to inevitably look back on where you are right now in years to come and think the same thing. So
it's so true. I went through disordered eating when I was in my early 20s, and I've talked about this before on the podcast. And it's so funny looking back at photos of myself during that time, and I'm like, someone give me a burger. What? Wow. Yeah. Like, I tried. You probably didn't. I would have said, actually, I don't eat white things.
You did say that.
White things are off the table. Well, I wouldn't eat white rice or white bread or white.
I was like,
you're like, what about cauliflower?
I was like, can I have hers?
I know. I got so triggered coming to Hollywood, and someone like I had an agent talk about my body, and she was like, well, you could work out, like you're a little bit skinny fat. And I immediately was like, skinny fat? What's skinny fat? Oh. And then, suddenly like in the gym, like crazy.
The term is disgusting.
Oh, it's disgusting. Yeah. It is disgusting.
I hate it.
And such a fixation on how I looked. And I look back at these photos and just poor, sad me. I remember waking up every day and I would think about food. I would think about like, all right, how many calories should I have for breakfast? Should I have less calories for breakfast and then save up the calories for dinner time? And then maybe I'll skip lunch or just have a smoothie for lunch. And it was my whole day was controlled by what I was eating. I still in my phone have notes that I found where I've written my calories for the day. Like, all right, this morning I had buckwheat, groats, and almond butter. That's about 350 calories. And that means I have 1,200 left for the day. Like, it was so nuts. And the way I sort of pushed through it was I lost my period because I got so skinny. And I got like a hormonal acne on my forehead, and I was shooting IM number 4 at the time. And you'll see, if you ever have seen IM number 4, my character number 6, she's really teeny tiny. And it's because I was in the height of, I was in a relationship. I was unhappy in that relationship. And I feel like it was my way to bring some control back into my life. Every aspect felt very out of control. And I'm sure you can relate in some ways. But ultimately, I got through it and I was like, oh, I'm just going to start eating bread again. And I totally healed myself. My period came back. I had IBS during that period of time in my life, and then that went away, and I just like engaged in a healthy relationship with food again. And I really like to think that my babies, my pregnancy helped like steer me back on the right path. I don't know if you want to talk to any of your experiences with that, but gosh, it happens to so many of us.
Yeah, no, I can relate to like all of what you said. I went through my first and second pregnancy, actually, like not in a very healthy mindset or a healthy place, like before getting pregnant. And I always felt like pregnancy kind of put my eating disorder on standby. Like it kind of made it go dormant. Mm-hmm. But then it always came back, like afterwards, always. And so I didn't feel like I was 100% free, but it was kind of like a break from, in some ways, like physically speaking, it was a break, but then mentally, like I was still messed up about food and, body image and all of that. And it wasn't really until I got pregnant the third time, right before I got pregnant the third time, that I like found recovery. I did relapse after my fourth. So it's been like a journey like this.
Yeah.
But I did relapse after having Andrea. I got really skinny really fast. Breastfeeding always made me like lose weight quickly anyway. But I think that coupled with orthorexia, which I think is more so what I had.
Same.
Yeah.
It was orthorexia.
It took over and I kept thinking, I'm so healthy. Like, why do I feel so shit?
Well, that's the funny thing about orthorexia is like you're so clean eating that you think you're so healthy. And then you realize like, oh my God, it's kind of disguised. You're like, oh, that's not healthy because it's not anorexia. It's not bulimia. I'm not, actively throwing up. But like orthorexia is its own beast.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so disguised in what I think like this modern day culture of like what healthy is and like all these like workout routines and this is what you should eat. And like there's this like ad that comes up on YouTube for me. I'm sure it's targeted in some way, but it's like a guy and he's like, oh, well, this is how you look like this. And it's just so intense. And I'm like, gosh, why does YouTube think I want to see this? This is crazy. But it's, that's what we're pummeled with all the time is like, okay, you want to look like this in the yoga pants. You want to eat these things because that's going to do that, like whatever it is. And that is, our brains need to be reprogrammed because we're seeing all of this information and we're going, oh, well, I don't look like that and I don't fit into those. And that's not what my butt looks like. So yeah, I think it's like, sharing those stories so that other people feel like, okay, this is happening to me too. I, see this. I've been going through this. It's just so important.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think about more so even now that I'm like fully recovered. I still worry about like the impact that it has on like my children. And even though things are so much, I feel like things are better now in other ways. It's also scary because they have the whole world of the internet, and social media has obviously like changed things. And I think it's changed things for the better in a lot of ways, but then there's also like a scary side, like anything, there's a scary side. So it's definitely something that I think about. I think about it like, especially for my girls, but also for boys. I think it's like equally as, like, I don't know. I feel like it's difficult because you're never, even if you are fully recovered, there's always going to be like temptations, and there's always going to be just like advertising even out there that is targeting things that, and it's so difficult to turn a blind eye and to really be strong in your mindset. Even as someone who's fully recovered, I'm like, I wouldn't say I get triggered, but I do have to be mindful of what I'm consuming, like for sure. And I have to know that like, okay, this is a slippery slope. I am not going to go down that road. I'm just going to keep on the straight and narrow, because I know myself and I know what I'm like. Like, I even try and stay out of conversations around, you know, if a friend of mine, which is fine. Like I did it for years, so I don't judge anybody that's like going on a diet or wants to lose weight, or even like friends of mine that may have, like, because a lot of women do have slightly disordered eating, even if they don't have a full-blown eating disorder. I never judge that because that was me. So who am I to judge someone else? But I just kind of take a step back from like certain conversations. Women love to talk about their weight and things like, and their size and things like that. And I just always have to kind of like
put a boundary.
Take myself. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't really want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. But it is difficult because it's still there. You know, it's not like you can't really completely ignore it. It's still around. It's still part of our culture. So I do feel like a little bit worried sometimes. I mean, you do the best you can as a parent, but they also get affected by outside things, whether you want to admit it or not. So that is a little bit scary.
I saw my daughter recently. She has a friend who, when she's not at school, sometimes wears like a crop top. And that kid is like a few years older than, my daughter. And so when she saw her friend in the crop top, she was sort of looking at herself in the mirror one day. And I was like, what are you thinking? And she was like, well, it's just that my belly doesn't look the same as so-and-so's belly. My belly sticks out. And I was like, oh, me too. And I was like, look. And she was like, oh yeah, yours does too. And I was like, and she goes, Winter's does too. And I was like, yeah, Winter's the baby. She's like, Winter's does too. And I was like, yeah, it does. And I was like, everybody's different, And it's just because that body, I was like, she goes, I know, but I really like that belly. I like her belly, the way it looks. And I was like, I hear you. And I see that you like that. I love your belly. But I remembered thinking in that moment, like, I am very conscious about how I look in the mirror, and like when I'm with her, the things that I'm saying and all those things. But it doesn't even matter. Like, she sees it. Yeah. She sees something different than her. Yeah. And she's saying, I like that. I want that. And I'm like, really? You're 6. Like, how do you see that? And that's what you want. And I would really love to understand the right communication to have with her. Like, I want to, reach out to someone and be like, what do I say in that moment? Besides just being like, oh, I love your body, and I love the way my body is, and the way your sister's body and your brother's body is. Like, I don't know, but you're right. It's everywhere, and they are affected by it. And I guess it's okay it's definitely okay to talk about it. I just don't know what the right language is there.
Yeah, I definitely think, I think that it is all around us. And like, my kids have said things, made comments about like certain Disney characters, or even like, the plus size Barbies. Like, they've made comments about, and I don't talk about bodies really at all. Like, I just try to keep it very neutral. I don't talk about I never have, even when I was sick. Like I just never, that's not somewhere that I ever went around them. And yet they still have their own like preconceived notions of like which Disney princess is better looking, or like which one has the better body or the better hair or the better skin color. Like it's scary sometimes because it doesn't matter what you do. It's just like, it's out there. And I do think like we obviously can't control that. But what I will say is those like pressures were also there for me, like for us growing up, regardless of social media. Like we were fed like a certain image is beautiful. Yeah. However, I don't know that I would have developed like a full-blown eating disorder had it not been ingrained like in a closer way. Like, so I feel like that was always there, and obviously that never changed, and that does affect people. But I had like a more personal experience where I had a family member that constantly commented on the way that my body looked. And it was someone that I really respected and I really looked up to, and I really held on to their every word. And I think had that not happened, yeah, I would have had like normal body image, you know, like issues. But I don't think, exactly, I don't think I would have had a full-blown eating disorder. So I always think about that, because I'm like, well, I'm not doing that, and Jonathan's not doing, like, we don't do that with our kids. And obviously that's just because we know better, and like every generation, like kind of, I feel like improves itself, and I don't hold any like blame towards that person. It's just like, that's all they knew. And it was just a different time and all of that. But I do kind of hold some, like, I have some comfort in the knowledge that, okay, well, I'm not doing those things. So as much as there's things going on in the, you know, greater world and like the world around them, I feel like the language that we do use at home and as their parents, that does become like their inner voice. And it definitely did for me. So I think if I keep that clean in the sense that I don't go to like a negative place with any of that, that hopefully they will have that self-confidence. But obviously there's going to be things that, you know, come from the outside. I think just they are essentially looking to their parents as like their role models, and like how we talk about ourselves as well is like they mirror that. So I think if we're doing the best we can with that, then, you know, I have hope that they will be okay.
Yes.
And
so do I.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it is something that you can help, because certainly I know that was something I had to change like during my recovery, because it had become the words that person had spoken to me as a child had become like my inner voice, and now they no longer are, but it took like reprogramming to kind of fix that. You know, and had that not happened, I just don't think that it would have been so severe. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. That's like my feeling on it. And yeah, I feel like they're always watching us, and especially when they're little, we're like their role models and their idols in a way. And I've just now even because obviously mine are getting a little bit older. I've now started talking to them about the fact that I had an eating disorder. Because I feel like they're getting to that age where where they're starting to be able to understand it. And I don't go into specifics, but I have always wanted to be really honest with them about that, because I think it's such a teaching moment. It's like, yeah, this is something that Mummy went through, and, you know, it was really horrible. And just to like make sure that they know that that's not something that's like, you know, attractive or glamorous. It's like actually the opposite. If I could like use that experience for good, then I feel like it was worth me going through it then, you know?
That's amazing. And you can use it as a teachable moment. It's a teachable moment for your children. Yeah, I definitely know my son has been coming home and talking about like, people having abs and they're so strong and I'm so little compared to them. My arms are so little compared to them. And I was like, your body is so beautiful. And, you know, I've noticed how much you're loving basketball and you're running so fast and I'm trying to help pivot him into recognizing, like, he's like, oh, I can move and I can run and I'm able-bodied. And he's like, and I am really fast and like I can jump really high. And I was like, yeah, oh my gosh, aren't our bodies incredible things that we're able to do all of these wonderful things with our bodies? And you get so much enjoyment out of playing soccer and playing basketball. And so I keep trying to like reframe it in a sense, which seems to be working. I was going through your YouTube videos earlier and I stopped on this one, which was about like fillers, which was amazing because I was like, wait, this is another really cool thing that Anna's doing. You are a public person who is actually talking about the fact that you've tried Botox, fillers, and not only are you doing that, you're actually sitting down and like talking people through your experience with it and how you like the look, and another amazing and refreshing way that you are just keeping it real, because so many other people with big followings either deny that they get any work done, or they don't say anything and they don't want to talk about it. And that's totally fine. But I can so appreciate that you're out there being like, yep, this is what I do. I like this. I don't like this. This is what makes me feel good. This is the reason I do it. And again, just another way that you're kicking so many goals. I think it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, I can see why in like a space where I do preach like body acceptance and body positivity, I can totally see why like some people would see it as hypocritical. And I was very mindful of that when I first shared. And that was probably like my main apprehension with like sharing it. But then at the same time, I was like, it's so much more harmful if I don't share, because I don't ever want to, I could never portray myself to be something that I'm not. It wouldn't come naturally to me at all. And I've even spoken about, so again, like I've recovered from an eating disorder. I am very like I consider myself to be body positive, but I also have like certain hang-ups and things that, you know, my body's changed. I went through a lot of pregnancies, almost like at the same time. So in a short period of time. So I have like loose skin, and I breastfed 4 babies for 12 months each. So my boobs are like not what they used to look like.
So am mine.
And I'm really happy that I was able to do it. Like I there's no regrets, but I did, I haven't done anything about it, but I did speak on like the whole plastic surgery question, and like maybe like that may be an option in the future. Again, I still haven't made any decision yet, but I also want to be upfront if I do go down that path. And I have received backlash. Like I know people have been like, well, that's so hypocritical. And I get it. Like I totally do get it.
I disagree with
like
that.
A little, I don't know. Like I do have a bit of a, like I'm kind of in two minds still. I'm like, is it the right thing to do? Is it like really vain?
Absolutely.
I'm not really sure.
If it's your truth and it's something that you're interested in doing, like all you can be is your authentic self. And like, don't we live in a world where things contrast all the time? Like so many things contrast. Like, and here's the thing. It's like, you are being so open and vulnerable with that experience. And it doesn't take away from the fact that you're in recovery for an eating disorder. These things can coexist. You can feel great about yourself, but also want to like try something to see like, oh, what would this look like if I did fillers? Like my friends are doing it. I'm interested in dabbling in this too. Like all those things, there's room for all of that to exist. Like life is complicated. It's not just black and white. It's many shades of colors. That's what I always say.
That's true. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think like I couldn't live with myself if I were dishonest about, like I understand why people do keep it private, because like, you know, God knows the internet can be really cruel, But I think for me, I have to remain I would just be doing a disservice to everybody if I didn't say. And I've been accused of getting stuff done way before I ever did anything. And I don't really get why, like, me of all people would lie about something like that, because like I will be the first one to
yes,
say.
You're such an open book.
I'm just like, I can't lie as well. I'm really bad at it. So I'm not a good actress, which I think has been proven with like any sponsorships or like anything. Anytime when Jonathan and I get like lines or like almost like a script, we're so bad at this. Our kids are good. Like our kids actually, I think, have like a natural talent, but we're rubbish. So.
Oh my gosh. I also feel the same way whenever I have like a sponsored thing, which by the way, I think it's why I don't get very many. Like none come my way. I always try and like, but can I just do it in my own words, or can I? And everyone's like, but that's not cool. That's not chic. Like I'm not quite cool enough or high fashion enough for brands to want to work with me. I'm always like, I'll do it. I'll work with you guys. Like that sounds fun. And they're like, nah, not her. Like I was like, okay, cool. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
It's because you make it look so authentic and real.
Yeah,
and
but then it's
like,
not.
no.
Then it's not chic and high fashion. I feel like,
oh gosh,
oh god, I'm just like, I'm not great at that stuff. But you know, I've always turned to you, Anna, because whenever I feel like I'm showing too much of myself, or I'm not like a curated version on Instagram. I just kind of throw it all out there. I'm like, you know what? Anna puts it all out there and I love what she's doing. And I'm always inspired by just the choices that you're making and, you know, the way you've navigated so much, including criticism, but also just like all the things that have come your way. Like you seem to handle it with such grace. And I just truly appreciate like how revealing you are and what an impact you are making on so many people around the world. You and Jonathan both, and your entire divine family. All right. So just in wrapping up here, I'd love to know, where can we see you? What does the future hold for you? Do you have any plans? We're excited to hear all about it.
Oh, thank you. I think just as our family kind of like continues to grow up, like the kids are really excited about like what they want to do next. And I'm excited to see where it takes them. Like Edie and Amelia are really, like I said, they're really into acting. And so they're just kind of going with the flow and like seeing where stuff takes them. Jonathan and I are always going to support all of them, like no matter what they decide to do in life. And I just think it's really exciting to watch that unfold. Like I'm really excited to see who they become. And it's interesting because our kids, like we're very honest and open with them about everything. We always have been. They know what we do they're aware of what we do for a living. Obviously, They know what comes with it. But something that maybe people don't know is that we've been honest about the good and bad, like from the get-go. I never try and hold things back from them because I feel like, what's the point? Like they're going to find out anyway. Mm-hmm. And so they know, like they've seen negative comments. I always felt like that was really important because I never wanted them to go out into the big bad world and then get afraid. Like I wanted them to know that this is just part of like the contrast that comes with what we do for a living. We get, to experience really cool things. We get, some really cool like gifting stuff and mm-hmm. you get free toys and you get like cool holidays sometimes. And that's great. And like it really, we're so fortunate and, mommy and daddy are able to be home with you guys. But there's also this like negative side to it, right? And I think because there's no like shock in that, it's interesting to see how like their maturity level about being in the online space is just so high.
Wow.
And it's really interesting that they are so what's the word? Like they're just so like protective of their family and like their mom and dad. So like I've even seen like Amelia and Edie will like, they'll make up, so they're not allowed to have their own social media because they're too young. I think they have to be like 13. So they'll sometimes make like little anonymous fake accounts and like fight back with some of the negative commenters. I'm like, oh my God, guys. And no one knows it's them.
That's hilarious.
I just think that's like, it's part and parcel of the internet. And, you know, they never say anything like really mean, but they just like, they defend us or they defend like their sibling or each other or whatever. And it's really cute, but it's also, it's like you can have fun with the negative as well. And if you just are open and honest about it all, it's really not that scary and it's not that bad. And I feel like that goes for any family with anything. Like, you know, if you're honest and open about even the stuff that might seem scary or might seem difficult or hard, you know, getting through it together is so much more fun and can be more fun and can be more just easier to overcome, basically. And it just makes it like, yeah, like a more pleasant experience rather than having all these secrets and like hiding behind things, you know, and that can be applied to anything, I feel like.
Oh, how amazing. Sarah, by the way, you've been so incredible over there. Sarah's been navigating a crying baby who's just so overtired.
Overtired and sick. And as I was like trying to help her a minute ago, I was like, I wonder if this is getting to like a level of sick that maybe we should go to the doctor. Because I was like, she was coughing so bad back there. And then I was like, she was like, Mommy, I need your help. And I was like, okay, you know, and then I was like, what's wrong? And she goes, I don't know. And then she just started like coughing and I was like, oh, she's two.
Bless her.
And now she's like half falling asleep. So anyway, sorry I was in and out there and I felt really bad walking away. But every time I could like somehow hear it through my headphones. I could hear what you guys were talking about. So I was able to jump back in every time.
That's so good.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Mother Days. It was amazing to have you. What an inspirational conversation. You can find, oh shoot, I forgot what the
Anna
name of the channel. No, the channel, Saccone-Jolys.
Like Jolys. Saccone-Jolys.
I know, I was calling it Jolly in my head.
Don't worry.
You can find Anna at the Saccone-Jolys, her YouTube channel, and you can find her on Instagram at Anna Saccone. Is that right?
Yes,
at Anna Saccone.
That's
okay.
Right, yes.
Yay. And thank you so much. It was so amazing to have you. You've been listening to the Mother Days. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.